Welcome back to Toy Time with Ricky and Rachel. This is episode 5. Today we're talking about BDSM. This is Peach. She's our guest for the day, and we brought her in, because she has a ton of experience. So, Peach, tell us about yourself.
Thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so exciting. And yes, I'm originally from Brazil.
Okay.
And main language is Portuguese, but I've been in the U.S. for over a decade. I lived in Chicago, lived in Denver, spent almost a decade in Denver.
Okay.
And thought I was gonna be. They say you get used to the cold, but that's not true. It's from a person that's from Brazil. But anyway, Brazil is like we were talking a little bit before, is a very Catholic country. The Catholicist culture. My mom herself was not religious, but it kind of ingrains in that talk about and in any way, because also English is not my first language, so
right.
You may correct me at any moment.
It's okay.
I don't get offended. But the culture of being a submissive, good,
Right.
woman,
Good girl.
a good girl. They're all about that, and I never liked that, especially because a lot of the women in my family. My mom had 5 sisters and
Wow.
1 brother, so there's a lot of women in the family, and most of us are of a dominant personality, I would say.
Interesting.
And including my grandma, because she, even with 7 kids, she finished school, and she got her bachelor's, and she got more studies, and then she wrote books, and yes.
That's incredible.
So, and I had very good influences on strong women. And there's nothing wrong about being, having a dominant personality.
No, of course not.
But unfortunately in society we see that as normal, as a role that men usually take in society, at least in our society, but
Especially sexually.
especially sexually. And I'm not saying one is good and another one is bad also, especially because I'm myself, I'm a switch.
Okay.
That's a term in BDSM, and that means that I like to take the part of dominant and also submissive. So,
Okay.
not in the same moment, of course, the dynamic, and I'm like, okay, I feel like with my partner, I'll be like, okay, I feel like more submissive today, so, and it could be either in day-to-day life or the bedroom. So BDSM is not only about sex. That's very important to say.
So you knew this about yourself before you found this?
I knew that, yes. Thank you for bringing me back to that, because I will take tangents and I'll keep going. But so growing up in that family, I saw the need to, first of all, do anything that was related to creativity.
Okay.
And when I was picking what I wanted for school and college and all that, and I started as advertising. I did 1 year in school of advertising, and then I'm like, oh, that's not really what I want. And then I went to fashion. And yes, so I got a bachelor's degree in fashion in Brazil. But before that, I actually remember of experiences that have so much to do with BDSM.
Right.
For example, I was in the drama class, when I was little. I imagine I was around 10 years old, and there was a class, and the teacher, his name was Carlos, actually, and he was just great, like just this box of imagination. And he closed the room, like he blacked out the windows, and he put cotton on the walls, And then he made this like little path, and I remember, and this was part of an event of the school. I don't know what holiday it was, but you know, when the parents come and everybody comes, so you would walk in. It was an experience thing.
Mm-hmm.
You would walk in, and you would have your eyes covered, and all of a sudden you were walking on pillows, and that's sensation play in BDSM. So I'm like, that's very interesting. Also, the fact that I like to play with fire. I was a very calm, quiet child, and that's usually the one you have to look out for, because they can be dangerous.
Yeah.
Right.
My grandma says quiet waters run deep.
So yes, yes, and I was always playing with fire, literally, like look. And then I remember liking the fact that it was blue. Also, that sometimes it was blue, sometimes it was orange. And then my mom told me a sad story about like a burning victim. That kind of scared me, so I stopped. But for example, I do use fire sometimes in not as I would like, because of safety reasons. Because I do my studio dungeon is in an enclosed space, so but for example, I use electricity.
Interesting.
Fun.
Yes.
So
And
how did you get started in BDSM play? What was your first kind of introduction to it? Was it a friend of yours? Did you kind of go to a party? How did you?
the first time I heard the term
What is
dominatrix, well, BDSM, I don't quite remember the first time, but I remember seeing a BDSM store in my hometown, just like driving by it and then seeing it, and then seeing leather masks, and like, what is that? And but it never occurred to me like, oh, okay, it would be for freaks, you know how?
Right.
Remember that?
No, that's one of the big issues we
religious
that's one of the main things we
beliefs
fight
behind.
with here in the store, is like people
Yeah.
thinking that certain kinds of play or whatever makes you this weirdo or something.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
no.
Yeah, that's a misconception, and I could tell by my clients. They are people like you and me. They are people. I am one of them. So, and I used to be in the corporate world. I got a bachelor's degree, and then I started working. I did like some other jobs like while going to college, but I got into fashion, saw that it wasn't exactly what I imagined.
Right.
It wasn't as fun, I guess. And then I wanted something different. I wanted to, actually I'm remembering something that I saw on TV, and that really caught my attention. But it was a show that talked about freaks, people that like to do weird things, and it was in making fun of tone. So, but I remember seeing that there was they were doing pony play. The couple that were normal couple. She went to her job, he went to his job, came back, they both back home, and then he would dress up as a pony, and she would dress up as his master, and she would tell him what to do, and then it was not about sex,
It's about play.
It was about play. It was about the dynamic of power, like the power exchange.
So those kinds of play, what is it like? If you try to explain it as best as you can, what is it that they're getting out of it? Like, why would somebody want to do pony play? Like, why these kinds of play? Have you done pony play or any kind of animal play in your business?
Most common that I do, and the one that I like the most, is doggy play.
Okay.
There's a sense of power when you put a collar on someone, and you put a dog mask on them, and you tell them to sit or like wait, and they do it. At least for me, it brings like shivers down your spine.
Right.
It's I compare to the first lick of an ice cream. I'm not a physician, but I heard it's the endorphins. But yeah, I don't know why. A lot of these things, and actually it's very questionable how trauma is related to fetishes and kinks. But nobody can really tell, because a lot of people, for example, that were not spanked in their childhood have a spanking fetish. So
I mean, it's, well, we're only scratching the surface of what we understand, you know, in our mind. But I think what's helpful for people to understand is what is BDSM, and because you mentioned that it's not just sex, right? And so how would you define BDSM, and what does that mean to you?
BDSM is an acronym, and the B is for bondage, or any type of bondage or restraint. D is for dominant, and which is like the dominant position. And the M is for masochist, or masochism, I believe.
Yeah.
And the BDS, the sadist, and M. Okay, so B for bondage, D for domination. I think it's interesting that they don't talk about the sub in the acronym. Like, you're so not important that you're not even here. So bondage, domination, sadism, and masochism. So, and those are really important, because one doesn't exist without the other.
Okay.
We do not recommend playing by yourself. That's why, you cannot.
Interesting.
But, yeah.
So BDSM on yourself is not really a thing.
You can enjoy things. For example, cross-dressing. You can enjoy dressing as a different gender and then looking in the mirror. But I'm talking about impact play, things that can be unsafe. Would you want to go back to fashion school with me? Anyway, I wanted to learn a different language, so I came as an au pair to the U.S. in Chicago.
Okay.
I stayed there a year, and I really enjoyed the culture. It was completely different, and already noticed how different people would judge you, as like people wouldn't judge me for what I was wearing anymore, especially here in Florida, because in Brazil, even if you're living in Rio de Janeiro, which is like beaches everywhere, it's a little more normal to wear skirts, and but still there's that judgment, which is in the culture. But here in the U.S., I definitely felt more comfortable being what I wanted to be,
Or how you wanted to
not
express
the
yourself.
good girl that I was supposed to be. And I worked as a nanny for a long time in the U.S., and I because of a marriage, and here in the U.S., I think also was very important for who I became. It was an abusive relationship. So it was emotionally abusive. And especially in my culture, there's no such thing as emotional, like nobody really teaches you. And I think it's important to talk about the whys behind. And very unfortunate, but I would say I'm grateful for everything that I went through, because I overcame it.
Right.
But unfortunately, it's very common to find that people in this community, and especially dominatrices, I cannot say in a statistic level, but a lot of them have went through some sort of abuse. Unfortunately, a lot of women go through any like type of abuse or emotional, even if it's stalking. It's I think it's like 1 in 3. It's very sad. But I was I don't know if you guys want to get to that point. I don't mind talking about it because I feel like it showed me how to boundaries. It showed me boundaries really young in life. I had an abuser, an uncle, and I think at 10 years old, I was, and it was very slight, but for example, watching porn in front of a child, that's an abuse. That's abuse. So I was presented to kinks and fetishes and sex very early in life.
Yeah,
so
that
I was very
exposure.
sexualized early in life, and I do think that plays a part because I do have some anger which plays a part in my sadism.
Interesting.
Yeah, which I think it's very therapeutic to me because I remember that man. And when I get a client that really wants to, a really masochist, like someone that like, look, I have my job, sometimes they'll say, I'm a lawyer, I'm a successful lawyer, I have a successful functioning life, but I'm a masochist. There's a show called Billions. Have you heard? We can talk about it in another episode, but it's an entrepreneur and very successful, and people try to shame him because he is a masochist. That information.
Can you explain the difference between sadism and masochism?
So, sadism, a sadist is a person that likes to inflict pain on others. And a masochist is the one that likes the pain itself. So that's why one cannot exist without the other, because we don't really suggest you doing on yourself.
Inflicting your own pain.
No, we don't suggest. No, that's not recommended.
Well, it kind of sounds like that goes along the lines of self-harm.
Exactly. Yes. Especially done in, BDSM is an 18 plus subject. So some people say, well, but if sometimes masochism can be influencing teenagers, and not really. It's a very strict line. Like there's even to have a website up, I do have to ask like, are you 18 plus?
Gotcha.
And also I don't see any minors. I don't. So it's an 18 plus subject. It is because you end up interacting with people's sexualities. It is still it should not be, I guess, open to everybody. In the sense of, okay, so let's make it okay, like for children to talk about BDSM. Let's talk about BDSM in school. No, no, let's not. Yeah,
of course not. Right.
Yeah.
But yeah, so the sadist is somebody that feels some sort of accomplishment and the actual hormones, the feistiness and the you feel the goosebumps,
right?
Yeah, from inflicting pain to a masochist, and they do feel the pain. They do. It's not like pain feels good, yes, but it's still pain. But you feel something else too, and it's almost at the same second. At least for me, people are different, and also there's the people that like pain, but I'm talking about a lot of pain, marks and all of that. And there's people that like the pain when is in a sex dynamic, for example. Because some areas of the body are extremely sensitive. So, for example, the buttocks. They in the BDSM world, we say that it's the sweet spot of like that where it jiggles, like on the
Right.
right where it jiggles. That's where it's immediately connected to sexual arousal
Interesting.
or sexual desire, as I
So
learned from.
the sadism masochism relationship, like when you have somebody come into your dungeon, how does that conversation go? Like what questions do they ask? What questions do you ask? You know, so like how do you set it up so that you find success later? How do you?
So, you mean me as a dominatrix, or
like
in the day-to-day life?
If
how
let's
people
say I
can-
wanted to come in and let's say I'm a masochist, right? And I go to you. What questions would you have for me?
So, before I even interact with people, there's an application that you have to fill out. Because also, two people that decide to play, two adults, you have decided to see me, and I decide that you are my client. So, you have to fill out an application talking about what types of kinks do you in fetishes you enjoy, and the level of pain you're okay feeling for that session, because I said like pain could be okay today and not tomorrow.
Yeah, consent.
Yes, and the amount of humiliation that you want to feel also.
Interesting.
So there's beginner, intermediate, heavy.
Does there always have to be humiliation when it comes to pain?
No. Usually the humiliation is a word that I use for like a broad, because of course I have the application, but I will have like a 5-minute conversation with the person right before the session.
Okay.
But it's very important to talk about how little that person wants to feel. That's on a more casual conversation. How little that person wants to feel. I'm not going humiliation, because humiliation is a very strong word, but
Right.
How does that person want to feel in front of me? Do they want to still feel like okay, I will submit to you, but I'm a CEO in real life, so I'm not gonna lick your feet. I'm not gonna lick your dirty feet.
Right.
Which is
So
worse.
for them, that they're like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah, I'm not doing that. So they say their limits.
Boundaries.
Like boundaries, I don't want to do this, and this. And there are hard limits. Hard limits is something that you're not willing to try ever. So it's very different with each person. And also, of course, they have to sign a waiver because they're basically allowing me for that hour. And the BDSM work in Florida is legal. A lot of people think they're doing something wrong. I'm like, honey, you're fine here. And yes, you have to know if they are allergic to anything.
Latex, right. That's
Allergic
a very
to
common
yes, or anything, because sometimes during the sessions I will say, like, if for example in a pet play, I'll say good boy, and I'll sometimes do some mind fucking too, like I'll pretend that is a dog treat and it's actually chocolate, and they'll eat it. They'll eat it because and it's so interesting how it's also the psychology effect, like how your brain, like for that moment, he believes he's a dog. He will eat the food, but of course, like, I don't want to do that. Of course, it's not going to kill somebody. So if they have agreed to eat dog food, then they'll eat dog food. But I don't, but I mess with them, and they're like, well, sometimes it was chocolate, and they said it tasted like dog food.
Interesting.
Huh.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's the power of our mind.
So we were talking about the
it's just like how you establish that relationship with your customer.
Yeah.
And you mentioned something interesting. Have you found in other states that BDSM play is illegal? Like, is that something that?
No, but I would imagine in some other countries.
I see.
Yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, that type of some couples actually like to do a contract. Depending on how extreme it is, like if you're going to wear a collar. But these dynamics work in society, and they work no matter if people are aware of them or not. I have a friend that she's bisexual, and in relationships with women, she takes over a more dominant role. And she's more jealous, not saying that all men are jealous, but in that situation she gets a little more jealous. And with relationships with men, she takes over a submissive part. And starts going to doing hobbies that she used to do less, because she's more, okay, I'm going to cook for him. And so that's very present in society. So those dynamics exist.
Yeah, those
I
traditional.
think the BDSM community just got, aware of them, and they're okay, just let's use this in our advantage. That's basically what it was. It's very ancient. BDSM is not a new thing. A little bit of history. There are Egyptian
Scripts, yeah.
Yes.
Hieroglyphics.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
with that impact play, in reference to impact play.
What is
Really?
impact play?
Yes, impact play is anything with impacts, literally. So spanking, flogging, whipping, paddling. Anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. So it's something that's been going on for that long. So what inspired you to start your business? Like, what is it? What was the moment where you're like, I think I should, was it you wanted to educate people? What was it? What was the
moment first I want to talk when I got into the sex industry. That I didn't know. A lot of people don't know that, for example, BDSM is still the sex industry. There's another dominatrix, Eva O. She's amazing. And there's an interview, and she was also surprised when she encountered, like, how long have you been in the sex industry? She's like, is this the sex industry? Yes, because you interact with very intimate emotions of people, and sometimes intimate here. So I was a nanny, and I was feeling the peer pressure. Okay, you're in the U.S., you're a successful nanny, but also, don't you think about doing something else? I'm like, not really. But I went to work in a corporate downtown Denver. I'm like, okay, going to work, taking the train. And I did that. And I'm like, this is not me. The only fact about this job is about the people. I like talking to people. I like coming here and seeing, my coworkers. But I was making very little money. So first, around that same time, I'm like, I think I like women as well. I'm starting to have dreams that I'm having sex with other women, but then I wake up. It was the whole thing. And then I went to a strip club, and I went with a gay friend. And he's like, I think you're going to find it a little degrading. And I'm like, let's just go. And it was like walking into a candy store. Like a kid, I'm like, I remember saying, like, boobs. Wow, boobs. So I'm like, yeah, I guess. So I was, again, in Denver in another country, finally able to express my sexuality, and at that job, and that was paying very little with a lot of responsibilities, and kind of being, having somebody at work that kind of, I don't know, we can say like harasses. There's always somebody like, so there was that situation. Nothing got worse, but I'm like, okay, I'm gonna do this. I talked to I got a lap dance from a dancer, and I was asking her. She looked really happy, and I'm like, well, but I don't think I want to be, a dancer. I can't even walk on those shoes. But my roommate at the time said, like, why don't you do like companionship? And that's, sure enough, that's what I did. I signed up with a company that did, because a lot of people, especially in Colorado and other states, there's a lot of older people that have either lost their partner or they're in the hospital, they're lonely, and they have disposable money and they want company, especially from a pretty face. And then I started going, and the what I liked, and of course it was a secret. Nobody in my family knew.
Okay.
And I started talking to these people, and I saw that most of them were in that moment they had the feeling that they owned me. Or not that they owned me, that they were in the position of power.
Interesting.
Because they were paying me for the company. Yeah. And I was okay with that until somebody tried something that I didn't like.
Sexual.
And then, not really sexual, started started touching my arms, and because it was really sitting down, having tea with people, having and sometimes they would give me presents, and we would create this friendship, but it wasn't sexual. And sometimes I would allow things, and sometimes I'll give them massages, but it wasn't a happy ending massage. Everybody thinks it was happy ending massages. I'm pretty sure other girls were doing it, but I was always like, okay, no. And then I got someone tried to touch me in that, like, those hands, those really like icky hands, like, ugh, I don't want that. And then I'm like, whoa, like, and then he's like, ooh, you're so bossy, you're so dominant. You should be like, and then he started like, do you want to spank me? And then I'm like, okay. But I like that. And then in that minute, I'm like, okay, I think I'm going to start trying. Because one thing that my abusive relationship taught me was people will treat you, and I say that a lot, people will treat you the way you tell them to. You have to, like, you tell them in actions.
Yeah, well, communication is verbal and nonverbal.
Yes, so
Interesting.
people never treat you as you don't allow them twice. So you allow, and I think a relationship's a two-way street. So even an abusive relationship, I was responsible for allowing that more than once. And that's a very touchy subject because also the victim is a victim and we don't want to victimize them again. But yes, so I learned that people will treat you as you tell them to.
And was that moment of surprise for you? Like where you realized when he's
no,
like spanking and you
my
liked
cousins,
it, like...
no, I always knew that I was bossy, and my mom told me, I can bring you, and she would say, she's so dramatic, she was like, I can bring you the moon, and it's not okay, it's not, and in my head, I'm like, well, but, I mean, there are other galaxies out. I mean, this is one moon. There are other galaxies. But it's not like, okay, you bring it for me.
Right.
Because, again, that's abuse. We have to learn, even if it's overdue, not overdue, overdone, if that word is overused. I prefer to use it because when I was going through something like that, I didn't identify. So, so it was more like, there's a whole universe out there. I want to go get it. Because she was very independent, my mom. She still is. And
so
that I got
it
from
runs
her.
in the family. So you
In
very
the family,
much...
all the women in the family, all of my mom's sisters and her, they have a degree. Some of them have a master's, and all of them worked and raised the kids. And
Interesting.
yeah.
So how long ago was this experience for you? Like with this client, how long ago was that?
That was 2019.
Wow,
Yeah,
so that was kind of
2019.
recent.
Yeah, so 2019, that was the first time somebody was like, okay, you're bossy. You should
Right.
be, it was the first click, I guess. And then I started researching, and then I started doing what other people started stepping on people, literally. Like, okay, today, you're going to shut up and I'm going to step on you.
Like that was your first
Yeah.
thing.
And it was
Interesting.
such a surprise. I was like, okay, that's a surprise. There's no way he's going to do it. I'm in my head, like, driving.
Yeah.
Wait, like he hired you to come and do that for
Yeah,
him.
and I'm like, okay, today it was already somebody
It was
that I
pre-planned
thought.
and you had the conversation.
Yeah, it was already somebody that I've seen before multiple times. Cause
One of your companions.
yeah,
So actually, question from the beginning, because we talked about how you have that kind of interview with your client. Were you doing that then? Like, were you already asking what he
No.
wanted? And I see.
No,
So you had to learn how to do that.
I had to learn how to do that, and I had to learn about the thin line sometimes between what's okay and what's not okay.
Okay.
But I always played safer than I should probably.
Okay.
Some clients of mine, they like to actually make me mad, so I
Interesting.
yeah, because I always play on the safe side.
Okay.
Well,
'cause-
going back to, experience of abuse, but I think when we talk about BDSM and especially sadism, masochism, the fine line between pleasure and pain, where is the line between this type of play and abuse? Like, how do we differentiate that?
So, consent. There's the dominatrix called Mistress LX, if I'm not wrong. She's got a YouTube channel. I love her channel, and she talks about consent. That is something that it can be revoked at any minute, and it has to be by two consenting adults. Because also, if I tell you, I want you to spank me until I get marks, you have to be okay with that too.
Exactly.
So the consent, and even me as a dominatrix, I don't say people hire a service; they hire a person, because
I love that.
they hire a person. They don't hire a service. And actually, if you're telling me, and I do refuse applications because of that, okay, this is what you're going to do. I'm going to open the door, and you're going to do this, and then I'm going to do this. Well, who's the dominant here? Who's making the decisions?
Yeah.
Are you aware if I'm okay with those things?
Interesting.
Yes, so consent is an agreement, and it's temporary. Sometimes you're going to consent for anything. That's why some people do contracts when it can actually involve marks, sometimes permanent marks, and it is pretty serious. I've had situations of, and I say, if you need help, say help, because with all of those. I call it the hormone party in your body. Sometimes that you're feeling good or bad, sometimes your body can't take it, and then some people go like, okay, I need to take a break. I always have some water, and then I that's why I in the beginning of those sessions I have that conversation. Okay, are you okay with this? Safe words. very important.
Mm-hmm.
I use green, yellow, or red. Green is if you want to let me know that you're feeling pleasure. That's awesome. And all kinds of pleasure that doesn't,
Mm-hmm.
I do my sessions dressed. There's that too. A lot of people mistaking by other kind of activities in the sex industry. But the consent aspect is that I believe the most important one.
Mm-hmm.
And the person can consent to something today and not tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
And also, you should not assume anything.
Like just because we're playing today and you say it's okay, so then next time I go
Yeah.
into a play
It's
session,
like
I'm making an
it's
assumption
literally-
that you're fine with this, but tomorrow's a different day.
It's literally tea. Would you like some tea?
Mm-hmm.
And then I make you tea, and I bring you tea. You're like, you know what? I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like it's
It's that level
the
of
best
like,
explanation.
I get. Are you trying to say that if you want to say no, it's okay to just no? And that's enough. Like there's no. You don't need to explain
and
yourself.
it's
You don't
very
need to-
common to. Also, the same dominatrix says BDSM is not a closet to come out of; is a buffet to choose from.
Oh,
Literally. So, I want to play
Wow.
with this, and this, and you know what? I thought I was gonna like this, but I don't.
Yeah.
And the opposite also happens with
Yeah.
me. In my case, nipple play.
Mm-hmm.
I never thought I was gonna like nipple play, and then I tried it once, tried it twice. We say try anything twice at
Okay.
least. And sometimes I'm more sensitive, and as a woman, some
Hormones, yeah.
hormones, and it hurts more, and then I don't do it. So.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is. It is
Yeah.
a choice, and I might not want something today, but I might be curious tomorrow. But
Yeah.
this is what I'm not going to try at any moment. This is my hard limit.
Yes.
Like you can never slap my face. That's a hard limit that I have. And also in that conversation, make sure you know people's triggers.
Right.
You ask them, of course. Like sometimes something will come up that not even them they were
They're-
aware.
Exactly.
But some people don't like to be called dumb. Some people love to be called dumb. Some people love to be called slaves or puppy, piggy, which is usually related to money because of piggy bank.
Huh.
And some people, it's so broad
Yeah.
that we can stay here forever.
Yeah.
No, really.
I want to go
But-
back to the companionship when I
Yeah, like, so
finally
so,
opened the business.
Yeah, how did you? Yeah.
So
keep-
I was doing that in secret, like seeing companions, and I was not even calling myself a dominatrix. I had like a client from the companionship because, of course, like the company was keeping a lot, and also they did not like the fact that I was saying no to clients. So because of course, I was supposed to be a submissive. I was supposed to be a good girl, going to see like pretty girl,
Huh.
going to see to be a companion to that person.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you know what, I should find out how to do it myself, like to put the ads online, and I will do that on my terms. And then that's how I did it. And then I was doing it in my house, And then when I moved to Miami a few years ago, I started, I'm like, okay, I need to make connections because now I need a dungeon. I need a space. But it wasn't as easy as I thought. So, but I was already doing it for a little bit, and I had my ads out, and then people started calling, and I started having clients, and I'm like, okay, I need a space. I really need a space because, and then, that's
and
how it happened.
the need for the space came from where? Is it that you had too many people,
Because,
or?
No, well, also I had a lot of people, and also I was seeing people in hotels, and in the BDSM community, sometimes, well, most of the time, people think that others are going to be judgmental.
Mm-hmm.
So it couldn't be. It has to be like a discreet place. Because for me, I don't mind, walking down the stairs like to my car like this. I don't mind it, but some people have, respectful jobs that they would unfortunately have to deal with opinions.
Yeah.
I mean, and
about
not
other
just
people,
not just
so-
BDSM. I deal with it in here. Like I've had celebrities.
Exactly.
I've had significant others bring in multiple different people. I've had that happen,
Yeah.
and that discretion is huge.
Some people are ashamed to buy condoms.
Yeah.
And I think that's so sad as like a evaluation of a society, because example, I'm not saying every the country's perfect, but I went to Switzerland last year, and where we're talking about how in Europe is different. They're probably like years ahead of us of how to see sexuality, because I saw a BDSM store literally in the train station of Switzerland.
What?
And
Yeah.
in Switzerland.
Jeez, if you put that near the airport,
BDSM store
Wow.
in Switzerland, right next to a library, a bookstore, cafe.
That's incredible, and you could see everything from outside. Like
Oh yeah, people are coming and
Because
going.
here in the U.S., like the way that the law works
law,
is like
I
you
know
can't
that.
see anything. It's like it's the way that like Spencer's, they do their thing.
No schools around.
Yeah. It's like this all very very strict. So wow,
Yeah.
that's really cool.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's so many European countries that, I mean, you can talk about sex and it's not, and you talk about sex like the weather, right? Our country, because of the lack of education and clear real sexual education, and because so much of our society is influenced by religion, and when you're talking about coming from Brazil and the Catholicism and how dominant those messages were. You can't even wear short skirts, right? You're going to be judged by the way you dress. And I mean, part of the reason why we started these conversations was because people are not having these conversations because it is so taboo, right?
Yes.
And that's a reflection of our culture.
And you know what? I think it's necessary, even thinking about that, because first of all, it tells a lot about it when you're when you're doing a scene, or I'm doing a scene with a client, or a couple is doing a scene with each other. You're showing who you are. There's like a genuine thing about the BDSM community is that they don't judge you. There are a lot of parties in the BDSM.
Yeah, hold on.
Sorry.
Let me tell him. Give me 2 seconds. Hold that thought. So there's no judgment.
Yes, the BDSM community is, in the majority, very open. And even if you've never met, for example, I got these shoes yesterday. I love them. And I went to a store, like a sex store. It's also like the name. It's not a sex store. Like, it should be... Anyway.
We call this an adult boutique.
Yeah, that's a good name. And then I was talking to her, and I noticed that she was wearing a key. And I'm like, are you a key holder? And that means key holder for a lock that locks a chastity case. So a chastity cage, which is It's literally what it is, a chastity case. So you put it.
Yeah, we have right over there. We have a bunch.
Yes. So I already had, kind of knew that she was, but I wanted to know if it was okay to talk about. And she's like, yes. And then we had, it's so genuine that you don't feel pressured, and you can be yourself.
That's actually something that, how do I put it? So some people, I've found that like the way that I engage in this discussion, like this topic, when I have customers come in, the tone that I use is very surprising for them. Like what you're describing, where you're like, oh, are you a key holder? Oh my God, yeah. And it's like, it's the same way. Oh, you just get that new purse? Oh my God, yes, I went here.
Yes,
It's like
yes.
the same. The tone is becomes surprising, and I think what happens is people think it's like this evil or like violent thing, and the way you've talked about it, you're like, no, it's for me. Like I like the way you put it, where like it's not a closet to come out of. It's a buffet to pick from.
It's not my quote. It's
no, but I like
think
the LV.
Mistress LX.
LX.
Yeah.
Okay.
LX.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Mistress LX.
She has some very interesting inputs. I love her channel. And it's important to know that consent is a very interesting topic. What were you just talking about?
Well, overall, it's just like the way that we talk about it, like the way that we discuss this topic. Like where you're saying, it's for you, it's therapeutic. It's the way you exercise boundaries, consent, all these things that in BDSM are super important, but in any other kind of play, it's necessary.
Communication, right?
Yeah.
Right.
When we're talking about that constant open communication, and even talking about it outside of the play space and allowing it to be a little bit more casual and comfortable versus, are you a key holder? Is that what you do? Right? Like I think that's the energy,
that's usually what happens.
In our society.
People
it's like,
stare.
can we
They
talk
stare like,
about
what's that key
this?
for?
Is it okay? Rather than, hey, I noticed. Is that
Like having a
Understanding-
store in the train station.
Understanding two things is very important. No, those people are not freaks.
Right.
Sometimes like freaks in the meaning of they like sex, but not weirdos. Those
Right.
people are not weirdos.
Yeah.
They're people like you and me. Believe me, doctors, lawyers, and especially like people in power of society, because I'm not cheap. Like my hour, like to afford a dominatrix.
Yeah.
Interesting.
So
What I've noticed in my work is that, because I'm a sex therapist, and so what I've noticed in my work is that sometimes, working with couples, a lot of times their sexual relationship mirrors what's happening in their everyday relationship. But what I've noticed is that what people tend to want sexually is the opposite of how they have to show up in their everyday. So I work with a lot of powerful women that are high in corporate ladders.
Why do you think that is?
Well, because if I'm showing up in my power every day, if I have to have all of these responsibilities and I have to make all of these decisions when I'm entering into a sexual relationship or a sexual experience, I'm like burnt out. Like I don't want to do any of that. So now I want somebody to take control, because I have so much. I have to be in control of so much in my everyday life that this is a space where I want to escape.
Yeah,
So-
it's exhausting. That's very true. I want to stop there because that's very true. Most of my clients, they in their day-to-day life, they're dominant, and they're usually the breadwinner of the family. And everybody relies on them, and that's so much. That is so much responsibility, and when they're there with me, they know that they can leave their ego at the door. They leave their ego at the door. They leave the outside world. We don't want to hear about problems. I always say, like, I don't care if you're the Pope or you're the president. Like, this is my dungeon. I make the rules. And now you're submissive to me. And and for them, that's incredible. It's like going back to being a
Liberating.
child.
Yeah.
No bills to pay, and you
Yeah.
you just relax.
Interesting.
It's free.
And what's
Yeah.
the, like, you know, so when they walk in, they may be tense, you know, they may be whatever. What do they look like after? Usually, like, what is the reaction or the
Well,
result?
it depends, because there's also different types of. It's in one of the questions I ask. What's your purpose? Well, what do you want to get out of this experience?
why are you
today?
here?
Yeah, why are you here? Like especially because they said, do I have to like fill out the application every time? No, you have to tell me what's your purpose every time, because some people like what's called tease and denial, and that is like teasing them so they're aroused and they want to have an ejaculation, but I don't let them.
Yeah.
And that entices them.
Heightens the
But
arousal.
they're still mad because they haven't done what
Oh,
they wanted
interesting.
to, but
Had
they
the release.
they didn't have the release, and then they can use that imagination with
That's
whatever.
incredible.
Sometimes, but some of them say like, I didn't even masturbate when I get home, but that was really hot that you just did not allow me to. And
Interesting.
there's something
Right,
about
right,
that.
right. No, and I get it. It's and I guess a better question would be like, what is it that, you know, what is it that people are looking for? Is it I guess it's that balance. I guess that's what they're trying to get out of it. You know, it's
yeah,
that,
it's very particular.
like, is it a
Very
release?
specific. One thing that I've learned is that kinks can be very specific, and fetishes as well.
Well, just sorry to kind of describe the difference between kinks and fetishes, right? Because I think that's something that a lot of people use together, and they can be linked.
Yes, it can.
But the real difference is that a fetish is something that you absolutely need for arousal and to be able to reach a climax or you know, orgasm. Whereas a kink is kind of like a preference, right? And something that can allow for arousal, but it's not something that is required that I have to have this thing.
Usually
right?
fetishes are usually related to an object or a thing.
A
like
body part
feet.
or a, yeah.
Very popular. Very popular. I think the most popular.
Yeah, I think it's like, the way I've had it listed to me, and it kind of makes sense, like boobs, butt, feet. It's like that's like.
But if you look, somebody told me that, a client told me that, if you look, a woman's foot, and I guess anybody's foot, is the shape of a body of a woman
Huh.
on the side. So if you see,
I'm like,
It's-
That's so
Yeah.
interesting.
yeah, but yeah, very common.
Huh.
And
okay.
also, like playing around with your feet, a lot of people like to lick and all of that, is also, it gives you the
Sensitive,
goosebumps.
yeah,
Yes.
super sensitive.
Interesting.
Yeah. And I'm sorry, I cut you off before, but there was something else that you were, you know, trying to describe of the difference between like, yeah, okay, like we can be a freak in terms of liking different things, but when people are thinking about BDSM, kink, and fetishes, where it's kind of like this fringy, like unacceptable, right? Like these are the things that aren't so common or conventional, right? But then in my work, what I really try to emphasize for my clients when they're like, well, you know, asking questions about what's normal, what's not normal, is this okay? I don't know if this is okay. I have clients that I'm sure don't even tell me half of the things that they're interested in because they're afraid of that judgment, right?
Yeah.
And what I emphasize to them, I'm like, first of all, there is no normal, but there are two things that are not normal or healthy when it comes to your sexual experience. And these are really the only two things that we really have to take into consideration, and that's non-consensual sex and unwanted sexual pain.
Yeah.
And so
Unwanted
those are the only
anything.
Exactly. And so anything outside of those two things are normal and healthy, right?
And
as long as there is
Interesting.
consent and that you're not experiencing unwanted sexual
and
pain.
it doesn't matter if you consented 10 times before to the same thing. If you say, I don't feel like it, immediately, if they don't stop, they're acting as an abuser. So you do have, I do not talk with people in my normal, like when I go to the bank, I don't say, you know, who you're talking to, because that's, no, that person is not even aware.
Right.
There's no
Of the
BDSM
dynamic.
play.
Yeah.
There's no BDSM play without that talk before.
Yeah.
Because that conversation is super important.
It's fundamental.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
fundamental to know, okay, I can go till here, like, and you're okay. And at any minute, unless, I mean, even if that person thinks that they're going to like something, if in the middle of doing, if they think they like impact play and they want marks, after the first one, if they say red, the session is not over. I redirect because my biggest kink is to give pleasure. So I tell them, be smart with your decisions because I will understand your likes and dislikes. And punishment is okay. Punishment is a thing. But they also have to be okay with the punishment. So, which is very freeing. So imagine I can do anything between here and here, and we're only stopping if that person says red. So, two adults with an agreement and with a safe word, and also, again, safety first. Nobody's trying to take anybody to start slow. That's why I say always play on the safe side. And yeah, be aware that you can harm that person. If you go too far, you can harm them not only physically but emotionally. I say to my clients, I might inflict pain on you, and you are going to remember that pain. But if you agree with it, and I'm not here to inflict, I'm here to inflict pain. I'm not here to cause you harm. Because,
I think that's a distinct difference, right? That
Very distinct.
That people really need to understand. There is a difference between harm and pain, right?
Yeah.
And harming somebody is unacceptable,
Yeah.
right? But again, that line between pleasure and pain and what pain means and that degree of pain and how we experience that in terms of sensation, right? And when I work with my clients and talk about sensuality and just this idea of tapping into our senses and being aware of the different sensations that are happening in your body.
That's one of my I'm specializing in sensation play.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorites.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. And Ricky and I did an episode where we talked about the different arousal styles, and that was one of them. Power play, sensation play. Like, what are the things that actually turn
Tickling
you on?
is something very interesting, and most people like it. Most clients that sometimes I suggest something, I'm like, okay, I think you're gonna like this, and usually they do.
Interesting.
What else?
Tickling is such a. I haven't been tickled since I was a kid.
It's some people like the fact that it
makes you laugh.
Makes you laugh, and it releases. Of course, you're laughing. Your body's releasing the happiness hormones, but also when it's done like soft. It could be the perfect role play, for example. And
so not going in like tickle tickle.
No, but I'm telling you, it's very unique.
For everybody.
Kinks and fetish, it's so unique. Some people say, I do like feet, but I only like them in black nail polish.
Oh, okay.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Or balloons. I did a session with balloons recently. Some people like to see just the balloon itself, because of how like glossy, how pretty it is.
Yeah.
It's similar to like the latex, how yeah.
Oh.
And they like the noise. One of the what attracted me the most to BDSM was the noise of things, the sound.
Yeah.
The sound of the whip. I heard, and that's why the whip is so like, oh my God, it's so,
Can you show
my
us
clients
which
are
one the whip
so,
is?
this one, this is a mini bullwhip, and the sound it makes when it hits your skin, it's so extremely pleasurable. It's like a brain orgasm, right?
Yeah,
That
it's
they
erotic.
It's like
brain.
brain ASMR.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, the sound. But it does hurt.
Mhm.
But it's so interesting because the fact that pain is related to to pleasure, it's not only a BDSM thing. Tattoo, for example.
Yeah.
People stay hours in the tattoo.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've heard it called needle
Getting
therapy.
tattooed. Is what?
Needle therapy.
Needle
Literally
therapy.
because of what you're describing. It's like, depending on how long the tattoo is and whatnot, but it's like I've had folks describe like reaching this meditative state
Yeah.
where the pain and the progress towards the tattoo getting done and stuff is like what they like. They like that. Like they like, yeah.
And
Yeah.
when we're talking about the adrenaline, you were talking about the different hormones, right? And so when adrenaline is released, it's like that peaks us up, right? And that like really turns us
Alert.
on, but
Alert.
not in like
Makes
a
you
sexually arousing way.
Sometimes when clients are like, they're still like moving around. I have a few clients that like to go around lunchtime, so they're still like slow for the day. And I do like to play with adrenaline because when you're scared, also adrenaline, but excited adrenaline. So adrenaline can be used to good. And pain, we always think about pain as like, why? When did I feel pain in life? You know, emotional pain is, or like physical pain, but physical pain is always like, oh, well, like I hit my arm somewhere and then it went all the way up to, so it's in a bad situation. But when there's some sort of imagination behind it, then you will feel the pain, but you also will feel something else. So the adrenaline, I do it right before. And I think it's because I'm going to say this, the fact that I like this so much. I have a taser. I don't tase people with it. I use it to get that
Wake them up.
adrenaline jumping.
Yeah.
So that's, and although they know, I would never tase them without their permission.
Right.
It's still there, and the noise, it's so
Yeah.
loud. It's like, pa! And they jump, and that jump, already, they're like, okay,
Heightened
I'm here.
sensations.
I'm here. Like, you got my attention.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's so interesting. It's much more psychological that people
That's actually one of the ways that I, at least here in the store, I have found the best way to communicate like what BDSM is at the end of the day. Like what is it that you're doing? Is you're manipulating your body's responses.
Exactly.
To
That's a really good way to put
different stimulus.
it.
And
I'm
you're
gonna
just-
use that.
Yeah, you're playing with that. So
Yeah.
like
You're playing with your hormones, with your happiness, with your hormones.
yeah.
I guess.
Like for example, I've
You're-
had like the sadism masochism thing. Like everybody thinks that they just like pain. It's like no, it's your body's response to the pain.
Exactly.
So it's like what you described is you can't just start big, big
Right.
hits because you
Yeah.
have nowhere to go.
Yeah.
Right.
Also,
But-
there's a technique of spanking. So to reach the release of endorphin, the big one, you have to start playing in intervals. For some reason, when you do this,
It's rhythmic.
Oh, your
it's
body
rhythmic.
gets stops.
Yeah, and maybe it's because the same rhythm of sex. I don't know. I wouldn't know how to, maybe because like,
Yeah.
and if you're hitting that sweet spot, and I would say every 10 minutes, 8 minutes to 10 minutes or so, you hit of hitting the same pressure.
Yeah.
After about 8 to 10 minutes, you hit a higher one.
Yeah.
There's a whole from
Yeah.
head. Literally, you feel it here. You feel from head to toe that release of endorphin.
Well,
I
it's
like to put.
unexpected, right?
Huh?
It's by the time that we're kind of establishing, okay, this is the rhythm, this is the pattern,
And the
right?
threshold
Our brain-
of pain also
And
goes
then
up.
once we get a surprise, something shocking, and that's what comedy is, right? Like they're telling a story and it's something like we're expecting one thing, but then they hit us with another thing, and we're like, oh,
I'm gonna
wow.
count to 3. 1,
Yeah.
2.
Yeah.
In movies.
So it
Wow.
kind of sounds
Yeah.
like that kind of rhythmic, like, okay, now I'm getting used to it. So that's what I'm
Yeah.
expecting. I'm expecting that.
Yeah.
But then all of a sudden you're hitting me with something else. And now
And-
I'm
But
like,
it's so interesting how even that's almost like hypnotic.
Yeah.
Like you're trying to get this
Oh, yeah.
person to
Yeah.
focus and I don't know, leave everything at the door.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like this is what I like so much about this subject, like BDSM, is that when you start to whittle it down, and now that we've gotten past all the what's sadism, masochism, we now just start talking about
the
you know,
experience.
if you do this, your body does this, and then
Yeah.
here's how we can get here. What
Yeah.
do you want to do? Blah 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 blah. You know, like and this concept, once I learned it and understood it, is why I started taking it to other parts of play.
Mhm.
You know, like with like foreplay, like that we've talked about that. You know,
Yeah.
where that is how you start. That's the application. You know, that's the moment where you have that conversation. You establish your boundaries. You know, what's consent. You know, what do you like? What do I like? Are we both doing this? You know, so that was something that BDSM taught me that I kind of took into other parts of sex. But it's something that people kind of, I don't know, are afraid of, or for so many different reasons. But I'm so glad we've had a chance to really talk about this.
The misconception, you talked about violence, the misconception that BDSM is violence is so wrong.
Yeah.
Violence, like I say, I could inflict pain, but
Not causing
You're not harming.
it's not harm. First of all, you're agreeing with it. I myself like pain. I liked, but it's so specific, and I allow myself to like certain pains and not others. So the fact that I'm deciding how I'm gonna feel that pain and when and with who, and yeah, when, because okay, I might be okay with it today, but on my everyday life, I don't. I want to be submissive here and not. In
And there's
that
an incredible
situation.
amount of trust.
Yes.
And that's something also that I tell
Yes.
couples. I'm like, sometimes, at least in BDSM play,
Uh-huh.
that the journey is more important than destination.
Yeah.
The fact that
Yes.
you let your partner take this flogger, this crop, whatever in their hand, and you let them do that.
Yeah.
That's a lot of trust. That's
Yeah, and unfortunately, this country still very judges BDSM with like a taboo thing, and something like people should be ashamed from. And these people have a lot to quote unquote lose. And yes, most of them have successful. Like, 'cause how are you gonna afford to pay for a dominatrix? Sometimes every week if you don't have a successful career, and then sometimes they could all of a sudden lose everything. And I say, which I hear I could hear and see their relief when they say everything that goes in here is confidential, strictly confidential between you and me. You are protected by law when I say that.
Interesting.
Which is like controversial, but yeah. And they don't understand sometimes how the trust is the main thing. It's the main thing, because I feel like he or she has to be capable of not afraid of telling me anything. Not afraid of. Sometimes people lie to their own therapists because they're
Yeah.
and
it's
that
true.
definitely does not happen.
Yeah, well, that's
People-
why I split the couples up And I'm like, and sometimes they tell on each other. I'm like, yeah. And so then when I go back into session, but the individual sessions are also confidential. So I can't tell the other partner that I know.
But it informs
it informs my work. Yeah. Yeah. It's incredible.
Yeah. It can be really interesting. In your field as well, you get trust is so important because there might be dark sides of in each person that sometimes they are. I have to sometimes be aware that some fetishes are some kinks are way too much. I have my own limits. I have things that I don't do.
Like your red line. Like you're like, I won't do this. I won't.
For example, race play. I will not do race play, and that's something I will not change my mind about. I don't. It's too much for me, and like we said, it doesn't matter. I'm a dominatrix. It doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that I'm gonna be okay with
any and everything.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's actually, I love that you brought, because excuse me, but even I never had thought about this this much, but I actually was never considered that a dominatrix herself. She's like, no, I'm not doing that. I never actually, so that two-way street thing is super important.
And we're all different. Again, we're
hiring a person.
Because I could have a different approach to pain, for example.
Right.
Because I do it on myself first. I have that rule. Okay, if I'm going to be hurting people,
I need to know what it feels
I need to know what it feels like, so I do it on myself. And sometimes it's challenging, but it's a lot of the personality. So a dominatrix, she still has to wake up, walk her dog, and
and excuse me, when you say do it on yourself, you mean you have a partner and you work with them to do whatever it is whatever you want to try out, like for in the future?
I do try some things with my partner. Mostly he's vanilla, my fiance. Mostly, he's vanilla, which is very relaxing sometimes.
Well, that's your balance. That's your,
Although it is a dom-sub relationship, but I wouldn't say, it's different because he's a little vanilla, but I think he's also, he likes the dynamic, he doesn't like the kinks, I guess.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Everybody, has their things. And one of the things that we say in sex therapy is like, don't yuck someone's yum. Right? Because
no, that's good. I like that.
Because just because it's not for you doesn't mean
right.
not for someone else.
I deal with that every day in here.
Right? Yeah. And so when we talk about, when I might say something or suggest something or like, oh, have you ever tried this? And then their face is like, oh, and I'm like, well, I mean,
yes, I remember.
Where's the judgment, right? Like,
that's where I start off. Always, like where I'm like, look, there are times where I can't even explain it. I'm like, I don't know why somebody would want to do this, but I know that it's doing it for them. What I'm here to do is show them how to do it in the most healthy way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's interesting you mentioned about like, I don't know if I'm. I even giggled when you were talking about the judgmental people. I giggled because usually those people are the ones that like something without even knowing that they do.
Exactly.
I brought people to the dungeon, and then she's like, oh my God, and a friend of mine, she's like, oh my goodness, like, and she did that. And I told her, listen, if God made me, he made me like this, it's his fault. Which I do, I am. I'm not religious, but I'm spiritual. I do believe in God. I do believe that he made us like this, so I guess it's his fault. But she got to the cuffs, and she's like, ooh, and I'm like, what was that again?
Exactly.
So usually when people are so judgmental, first of all, they probably just never heard of it, never explored themselves. So don't judge them either, because society is like that. I mean,
exactly. I think so much of this has to do with expectations, and the expectations that we've created based off of the messages or the things that we've heard, or the stories that we've created. Exactly. And then even in terms of, you know, like when you're saying that rhythmic and then we hit them with something else, we break the expectation, right? And I've done workshops with couples where I've literally taken, you know, different toys, and I've blindfolded them, and I've gone around and like done some of this to them. But what I did first, I showed them the whole basket of all the stuff that I'm going to use, right? Just so that they're aware.
And usually they just go
so
straight
that they're
to
aware. And then I had what's the pinwheel. I had a pinwheel, right? And so one of the he's like, is that a pizza cutter? And then this idea of like, no, I can't. I don't, you know, want that, or I don't like that. And even in terms of like rope play, right? I had some ropes in the basket too. So when I went around, and it was so funny because I went with the pinwheel, and then he's like, it's the pizza cutter.
But if done lightly,
exactly,
it's almost like a tickle also.
Can be. And then when they came back, when, you know, we had them take off the blindfolds, so many of them were like, you know, I was looking at the basket and I thought to myself I wouldn't like a lot of these things, but then when I allowed myself to tune into the sensation, they were surprised with what they actually felt good with, right? And so this idea of when we allow ourselves to let go of the expectations of what we think something should be or how it should be, right? Then it really opens us up to just kind of play and experience and explore. And it's that exploration that I think is
and then
so important.
The other one too that I think what happens, and it happens to me often here, this isn't a, like, how do I put it? You know how, this is weird, but you guys know how they decide who like the next Dalai Lama is? You know how they test it? It's like they put out like a bunch of toys like in front of a kid, and then like they ask him to pick, and then if he picks the toy that like the Dalai Lama used to play with, like it's like
really.
So that's one of the ways they do it, I think. The point I'm trying to make, what I'm trying to get to is that depending on what you pick, what you like, what your kink, or it doesn't say anything about you. Like you had said that earlier, where you know you have people that aren't attorneys and aren't doctors and surgeons or whatever that still like to be puppies and still like to be you know, humiliated and whatnot. So it's not you
don't need a dominatrix. You can do it with your partner.
Exactly.
And it doesn't need to be sexual.
Right.
You could do it with a friend. You can have, you know, a friend, okay, let's agree to play together. And that could be.
And that's something that I see. So you say that to me and I'm like, right, a friend, like totally. Now to certain people, they hear that and they're like, I would never ever my friends could never know. And what I hope people understand is that, and they've paid attention to what we've kind of touched on, where it's consent, trust, boundaries. These are communication. These are all things you would do with your friends anyway.
Yeah.
You know, it just, what happens is the context changes. You know, but like you said, it doesn't have to be sexual. We could be fully clothed. I don't have to. It can reach intimacy, but it doesn't have to be. We could just be, you know, like I've been to events where people are doing shibari, like the rope tying and whatnot, and they're not doing. It's actually a craft. Like they're really like, no, I just want to try this knot, and you're very petite. Do you mind? I only have rope that's this length. Can I try it on you real quick? And that's what they're just, you know, we're all just sitting down eating food
colors.
and and he's just tying her up
beautiful.
real quick. Yeah, exactly. And and I can see how for him, it's meditative.
And it's a silent habit. Also, I love silent habits. So
exactly.
I'm looking for classes to learn shibari.
Yeah, we sell the rope. And I have had folks where I have my opportunity to ask them questions and whatnot, but I also I'm interested in it in an educational sense. Like what is it? What is it? Why? You know, what do the different knots do and all the different, you know?
Yeah. I took a shibari workshop at a sexuality conference that I went to. It was really, really incredible.
Yeah.
And so I got a book, I got a few ropes, and have done some playtime. It's really fun. But I think when we're talking about so much of this, because it is so deeply vulnerable to share some of our kinks or fetishes or desires of what we actually want to experience, right? I mean, that vulnerability and allowing ourselves to be vulnerable in that way, I think, is deeply and inherently intimate, right?
Of course.
Yeah.
And even if it's in the context of a workshop, it's still, we're all allowing ourselves to go to a place that, you know, maybe we wouldn't allow ourselves to go to in a different context, right?
Yeah.
And so it's recognizing that whenever we're dealing with vulnerability, it's you know, it needs to be protected, unless, as you were saying, it can kind of cross those lines of abuse.
It can definitely cross the line, and it's not, you can create a trauma right there if you continue, and it's a no. It's a big thing. Consent is a big thing in the community.
We say consent is sexy.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
On the taboo aspect of it, we as humans like to forget that we're animals.
Yeah.
And
Well,
we
hold
have,
on right there before you go. I just want to check it's still recording. I want to be sure. It is. We're good. All right. So just start down that same thing on the taboo subject.
on the taboo subject, we forget to remember, I would say. We forget that we are animals. We're creatures, and we have instincts. Sometimes we don't act on those instincts because we are a society, we're a civil. But between, between the
Walls.
of the walls,
Yeah.
two consenting and two or more consenting adults, they can agree that now you are my dog.
Exactly.
And it's okay. And why wouldn't it be?
Yeah,
Because
and nobody has to know.
Nobody
I think that's
has-
the thing. When couples tell me and they're like afraid to say, oh, I'm interested in this, I'm like, who's in your bedroom with you other than you and your partner, right? Unless you want to have, okay, if you want somebody to watch, that's cool too. Or if you want to record, that's cool too. But for the most part, this is a private experience between yourself and your partner, and nobody has to know.
Yeah, and it's such a wrong idea that, I do it, but like nobody else does. This should be just between you and me. And most people, if they have not tried anything, they wouldn't know.
Exactly.
They would not know because it doesn't happen naturally.
Right.
You have to be
Intentional.
and you have to be, I would say, provoked for some. So we're not going to run into BDSM stores like in Switzerland. So unfortunately in the US you would have to
Seek it out.
Yeah.
And that's actually that's where I've fallen into like discussions with people in the community about like 50 Shades of Grey, like the effect of that, where I understand and I get it. Where
they lose me on the consent. Like first.
Oh,
of all,
I agree.
And
I agree.
The trauma, when she recognized that there was trauma and she agreed with it, would continue with it. So yeah.
So that I agree with, totally. Like the way that the way they went about the story and telling it, 100%. There's issues. It's
serious.
I
issues.
agree. But I'm touching more on, there were people in the community where they got upset, in the sense that they said it cheapened it kind of diluted the community. Like it brought all these newbies that didn't know what they were doing and just following a fad. Like at least here in the store, they got upset where they're like, oh, now you guys are selling really crappy stuff, blah, blah, blah. Because in the community, generally, what I found is you guys try to use high quality leather, like tough stuff that's made well, handmade stuff. But I say, that's where I say the pro of that was that it exposed people
Yes, exactly.
into
I
this
would
kind of
agree with it.
idea or this
And
anything.
also,
that,
not everybody has money to buy everything leather because,
Right.
like
Totally,
latex,
totally.
leather, it's expensive.
Totally.
Yeah.
And
It kind of normalized that, hey, there's a different way to play.
yeah,
Right.
Right? And,
Yes.
and it doesn't have to be a problem. The way they went about it was problematic, right?
Yeah.
But this type of play doesn't have to be a
Yeah.
problem. Right.
They got it wrong because it was like tapping on that misconception that everybody that likes that stuff is a weirdo. Oh, he's successful, he's everything, but he has
Has this.
a trauma,
Yeah.
and then he got into this. It's not that simple. It's not that simple, and also it's not only about impact play, and that's one kind of play. And in their case, it was not play. And even when she felt pain, she didn't feel comfortable expressing. That's important. She couldn't revoke her
Yeah.
consent,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
big problem.
And something that you were saying earlier in terms of, being able to decide for yourself and express for yourself, like, this is what I'm open to, this is my hard line, right?
Yeah.
These are my boundaries today, this is what and that within itself, and for me, when I work with clients around finding their sexual voice, right? How can we learn how to express the things that we want and need, don't like those types of things? It's so empowering to know that I decide, right?
Yeah.
And even within the context of, hiring a dominatrix, I'm still deciding and consenting to be in this space, and we're discussing that these are my limits. This is what
Yes.
I'm open to. So even though it might seem, or, within the context of like humiliation, but it's still, I'm consenting to this, I'm deciding this, so I'm still in my power.
And a
Even
lot
if I'm
of-
in a powerless position.
Yeah, and a lot of the things that we experiment is out of curiosity,
Yeah.
just like any
That's how we
human
learn
being.
as humans.
It's how we learn, and we forget that as children we are very curious about everything. And if, of course, I don't do that at home, but if you put a bunch of toys in front of a child, they're gonna turn around, they're gonna see how the sound it makes. And as adults, these are my toys.
Oh, well,
these
it
are
happens,
adult toys, but
happens
they're
in here all the time, all day long.
yes, and
People grab the things off the wall and they start hitting each other. They have the handcuffs. They start playing around. I see it all the time.
Yeah, and I fidget with them sometimes. I have some of them that I keep like close to myself. And yeah, we're creatures of curiosity. So when you interact with it and it's different, and it causes that, the fact that you're interacting already shows that ooh, like, this is different. It's because it's different. Like you would think, why would somebody want to be humiliated? Well, that's not my everyday normal. I don't remember if I've been humiliated in my life, like actual humiliated, because that's what I asked too, like the level of humiliation. Like, do you want to feel shame, or do you want to cry? Like that. So there's,
Right.
And yeah, and the fact that somebody's telling you what it is. This day-to-day life situation that happened was very telling to me. I went to a party, and they changed where it was women's bathroom, men's bathroom, and everybody was confused, so there's a lot of people going in. So they put 3 women, and they were so mad because it was very busy, and they were so scared because they didn't want men coming into the women's bathroom. So they were so mad, and they were like, "You here, come!" And immediately I'm like, "What am I doing?" And there's a sense of obedience that immediately hit me. And I'm a dominant woman, and I'm in my at the party, and I'm like, yes, like, but then this women are like, "You here," and I'm like, yeah, and it felt good. it felt good to, at that time, please somebody at that minute. Okay, they want me to go this way. And then they especially when I went, I'm like, oh, so sorry, I didn't know you were talking to me. And I was like, and she's like, no, you're fine, honey, you're fine. So that you're fine, honey. Sometimes I do that with my clients, and I'm so stern with them. And then the next second, I'm so sweet. And that's part of my personality. That's one of the reasons why I call myself a goddess, is because of that personality, that I also can be an angel. But that switch, that I was in a party having fun on a Saturday, whatever, and then all of a sudden there's this woman that I've never seen and starts yelling at me and telling me what to do, and without a question I do what she wants. So that was like, wow, it really is in your mind.
Yeah, and we're like conditioned to respond a certain way, but then if we allow ourselves to kind of use it in a different way, in a different context, and it can bring out a whole other side of us, which is so much fun.
Yeah,
no, I'm just kind of, this has become such an interesting episode. It's that one thing I've like seen, which is kind of, it's funny if I should put it to you on a TV show, but it's not funny to me. It's like when I have people, I'm here enough where I get to see people come in several times, so sometimes I start to recognize folks and stuff. The customer that walks by, and they see all this, they just walk by, right? And then they go buy something else, and then they come back later, and then now I see them grabbing something and going, okay. On the third one, they come in with their partner, and then they'll browse around, but then they come back over here, and then they'll do the same thing, and then they'll whack the other. I've literally seen that happen. They leave, then they come back on their own again, then they buy it. It's like it took them that much to
exposure.
Yeah, it was like, and maybe it started with watching a movie. Maybe they saw something on the internet, like porn or something. I don't know, but I have seen like that start where they started very small and they kind of just worked their way up, and it's.
And I think that's what it is too. Like, just because we're talking about BDSM doesn't mean you have to go straight to the
right.
And there's very little aspects of life that we are interacting with. For example, sensation play. The fidget toy. That's basically what it is. It's giving you a stimulus of doing something, and if it's either like the sound or you are already. Playing with your mind like that. So, and also what was it that you said? I'm like, okay, I gotta say that.
You remember.
I'll remember it eventually.
So one of the other things too that I'm kind of like realizing is that what makes it BDSM is the dominant and the sub. Because everything we've talked about, we're talking about, because a lot of topics or concepts we've covered, you can apply to other things like, friendship or, just in that moment you're at a party and you had these ladies, talk to you that way.
In my case, I did have to find a friend because it was hard to find somebody to agree to hit me with this. That was hard. Like, because in my relationship is, like they wouldn't, especially the vanilla. And I'm like, okay, I really need... And he hit me like, doop. And I'm like, please.
It's interesting. And you're
like,
literally...
I'm so scared of hurting you.
And no, and I love that. That's a great example. Like, you're like, hit me, and he's like, I don't want to. Like, I don't like...
Yeah, it's hard to cross those when we've created boundaries in our own mind of what's acceptable, what's not acceptable, and then crossing those own boundaries for ourselves.
Yeah, and I asked my friend, she's not in BDSM, she's not in the community even, and then after the second one, she's like, I know you like it. And I'm like, you like it too.
Yeah.
It's yourself. So,
so
people really would not know if they don't try.
Honestly, what it's becoming for me is this really just is unfortunately, people kind of trying to paint it in this like violent or weird kind of thing. But actually what it's becoming for me is that this is a healthy way for somebody who's very unsure, doesn't know, like there's a lot of rules. There's a lot of, not rules, but there's a template. Like,
Yeah.
hey,
Structure.
Thank you. So if there's somebody that they're not sure, even if outside of impact play or anything like that, just a toy,
Yeah.
just a vibrator, like using that structure to introduce that or engage with your curiosity.
Yeah.
It's very healthy actually.
Yeah.
Like all the boundaries and the communicate, saying everything out loud
Exactly.
and
Yeah.
expressing yourself. And
There are studies that study the dirty ones, the ones that nobody talks about. The absolute. Oh my God! But we can't talk like the showers, the golden shower, the brown shower, and it's. For a lot of people is disgusting, and sometimes the reasons behind why people did that like that kind of play could be like as impact play. It could be from trauma, and even if it's from trauma, that's still a part of that person, and for them, it's safer to do it on in an environment that's one thing that I rarely do. I honestly cannot get over the smell. But yeah, so I rarely do. I charge a lot of money for it because it's not enjoyable for me. When it's not enjoyable for me, I'm not going to do it. And a lot of people that like degradation, unfortunately, they have been dealing with that, or they dealt with it, or they did not, and they're just curious about it.
Yeah.
Why, if some people like it, maybe I'll like it.
Well, I mean, all of this, and I think a part of the key takeaway is that this is all on your own terms.
Yeah,
Right?
and it's
so regardless of where it's coming from, and
so
what
the
you
power is
said-
within yourself.
Exactly, and you said earlier that even when you see, people come in and they, are maybe making some judgments, and you're like, well, I don't know why some people would like it, but they do, right? And so I think the why isn't as important as
I tell
as
my employees,
recognizing
I'm
that
like, don't bother trying to figure out why. You're gonna drive yourself crazy.
Don't,
You're gonna,
because you might like something that I myself like something that I never thought in the middle of sex. One day I told my partner, spit in my mouth, and I had no idea why. That just came, and when he did, I figured that it's the temperature. It's because his body temperatures is different than mine, so it's a kind of like a sensation thing and a power thing.
Yeah.
So, and I think I would be in my normal day, I'll be like, why exactly did I ask that? I don't think I would ask that watching TV here, but also the nipple play thing that I did not like. I didn't have anything popped up in my mind. I just like, I don't know if I'm gonna see it. I don't know if I'm gonna like it, but I'll try it. And I'm like, oh, so really you wouldn't know until you try it.
Yeah, that's one that it's hard for me to explain, where the nipple play thing. So people get caught up in, and this is why I like the way the BDSM community thinks about it, where people get caught up in that, oh, it's nipple play, like that's weird, or like it's just, I don't know, explain it. They get caught in what it means.
It doesn't
Like,
mean anything.
no,
it can
it doesn't.
mean
It just means
different things to different people.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like
Yeah.
I just like this stimulus.
Yeah.
What it means to me is it doesn't matter, you know.
Or I would question, why do we go to the casino and press a button? But old school was you pull down the lever. But why do we go to the casino and we press a button? If we can press a button anywhere, why are you pressing a button? Why are you spending your money?
Some type of
And
reward that you're getting.
sometimes there's a reward. So
Yeah.
we're creatures, we're animals. Like sometimes the pressing the lever, I mean, rats do that.
Yeah. Well,
they're conditioned, and based on that reward. Like, it's kind of...
But the fact that the reward, you don't know when exactly you're going to get that reward. So it's a part of that, like...
Exactly.
Oh, I don't know if I try this, I don't know, right?
Maybe
So
what I'm considering is, like, the discovery. The fact that you kind of... Again, like, the tone. It's like you did it, and you went, ooh. And then you kind of just kept going.
Exactly.
And I couldn't explain, and I'm like, that's okay. I don't need an explanation. I just like it.
Right. I feel like I have folks in here that they're like, oh, but if I do that, then
then I'll be part of the weirdos.
Exactly. It's like even the people that you consider the weirdos don't even. They're not even looking at it that way. They don't.
Exactly.
It's social media, the perfect family, and it's. No, people are people. People are curious
and of ourselves.
Of course.
And I think normalizing kinks is a big thing. I'm not ashamed to say that I'm in the BDSM community.
Yeah.
And
the more I think that people talk about it, I think the more that we can normalize it, right?
Yeah.
And you were gonna ask something. But
I was gonna say I'll make this my last in your, because it happens to me all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, people ask me, oh, what do you do? And I'm like, oh, I'm the manager at a sex store. They're like, oh my God, their reactions are different, but they usually kind of lie on, oh wow, like I did not expect that. In your experience.
I say I step on people for money, and then they laugh, and they go, "I'm just kidding. I'm a dominatrix."
Okay.
And they like, "Okay, I've heard that term before." Usually they say,
How does that usually go for you?
It's so funny that like after I started the business here, like officially, I'm like, okay, now I have to tell people.
Oh, the bank.
No, they're actually, I think with the amount of people, I think after COVID, there was a boom of OnlyFans girls.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so especially in Miami. So I did not have a problem with that. I did not have a problem doing my taxes. And especially this Latina lady, I'm like, oh, hopefully she's not religious. Hopefully. And again, religion is not the problem. I myself am, and she's like, oh, funny you say that, because my girlfriend's friend has a store and sells those things, and she's like, those things that you hit people, and I'm like, whipped. But and also the landlord, the people, the studio I rent, he's like, oh, okay, I know what it is, I know, that's great for you. So, but some people are like, oh, and then you explain a little bit, and they're like, you know what? I like pain, but I don't know why.
Yeah.
Interesting. So you have had people kind of come out to you a little bit.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And some people have fantasize about fetishes and kinks for sometimes decades before they have the courage to call. And then they get there, they're worried that, and then when they see that it's a judgment-free zone, your ego stays at the door, and they're like, okay. Yeah. I say, if you're not comfortable in here at any minute, even if you're feeling pain, if you're not comfortable, then there's something wrong. Yeah. And sometimes it looks like they're in pain, but I ask, like, what color are we? And even if I'm like, what color are we? And then they say green. I'm like, okay. So I put a pillow on the cross. I like to put people on the cross. And then they say, like, you're too nice sometimes.
That's the goddess part.
Yeah.
All right, well,
that's the carrying the TLC.
I think that's the end of episode 5. That was actually, that went way longer than I expected. But
that was like 2 hours. I don't know
but that was no, we'll cut. We'll even make it 2 parts if we have to. But thank you so much
Next
for your
time,
time.
we have to be like, okay, we're only gonna have to talk about this
Can
or
I
this.
say something before you
Absolutely.
kind of
Absolutely.
and then you can, because you were saying something. Okay, what I was going to say was, well, the more that we're able to share about our experience, the more that we welcome other people to also open up, right?
Yeah.
So it gives people permission to realize that, oh, I'm not the only one that has this idea, and I like pain, and so
you're
this
not
is
so
a way
special.
for me
You're not
to
the only one that has those kinks. Believe me.
Exactly. And so this was really, the intention behind having these conversations, and we're so grateful that you came here to open up with us.
you.
Yeah, no, thank you
and-
so
and
much for your
share
time. So
experience.
plug yourself,
Yeah,
your name of your
please.
business.
Thank you. Well, thank you for listening to me. I am, GoddessPeachB Beauty, and I do have my website. I'll give you
Yes.
guys.
Yeah, and we'll post it up on the
please.
description
Also on
and everything.
Instagram and Twitter, but yeah, I have a studio dungeon in Miami, and yeah, hopefully one day you guys
We'll see you there.
get to see
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, maybe. Well, this has been episode 5. This has been Toy Time with Ricky and.
Rachel.
All right, thank you. See y'all later.